over. So I would like to hand it over to my dear Teresa and yeah, take it from there.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Leeza. And thank you all for being here. This is so exciting. We, as Leeza was mentioning, and as Dusty was pointing out, we've been together for quite a few years, and we've been gathering in this same way, even well before COVID, as a mastermind group where we support each other and we share our pearls, we share our struggles, and we share solutions. And because of what's happening on this planet with this situation, we realized that a lot of the wisdom, we've been meeting every 2 weeks for like the past 3 years, that we wanted to open this up and invite all of you and anyone else who would like to be a part of it into our conversations, kind of like this secret little meeting room with us, where we're less secret. Hi there, Margot, welcome. And you can go ahead and push mute on that, because we're going to be doing that, but you're going to have questions and you can put them in the chat box as we go along. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, which will be wonderful. But anyway, with this, we have 5 industry leaders here, industry experts, and we have a lot of hot tips that we thought maybe we could help with all of you offering and sharing those. But also we know that you all may also have some wonderful insights and perspectives to share, because with this situation, we're all in this together. And so instead of getting overwhelmed, what we decided was to address one question each week and then really have an in-depth conversation about it. And today's focus is simply about self-care, or about caring. How are you taking care of yourself? What are the best strategies to best care for yourself during and even after this whole crisis happened? And so what we're going to do is have each of us panelists, we're going to take just 2 minutes, and we're going to share one of our favorite pearls to share with all of you. And then we're going to have about 3, 4, 5 minute conversation amongst our regular panel of the Mastermind group to just chat a little bit about it. You get the insights of how we do that, and through all of that, be sure to write questions if you have them, and that we will be addressing at the end, and then we're going on to the next person. So again, even right now, if there's any questions that come up about the logistics, feel free to put it in the chat box. But I'd like to just start with asking, I don't know, who should we start with?
Excuse me for interrupting. Do you just want to have everybody introduce themselves first? So
yes. Oh, yeah, of course. So, and as you know, I'm Dr. Teresa Nicasio. I'm a psychologist here in Vancouver, Canada, and I do other things. I have a radio show, and I'm an author, and yeah, I do quite a few things, public speaking and so forth. And I'd like for each of the other group members to just give a brief snippet of who you are and what you do. You want to go first, Luke, or Dusty?
Sure, yeah. Well, hi, gang. My name is Luc Goulet. I'm a Frenchman from Quebec. You can tell with this accent. I've been a businessman all my life. I own some real estate buildings, and I wrote 2 books. My last one, Leverage Your Mind, the next phase of self-empowerment, where we discuss tips on how to reprogram the conscious and subconscious mind to turn the negative into positive. So that's it for me.
Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Robert Dusty Staub. I worked as a therapist, ran crisis centers, then moved into consulting. Been consulting now for about 35 years, 30 years running my own business, helping to liberate the purpose, passion, and power of individuals, teams, and organizations. And I'm an Army brat. I was in 10 different schools the first 10 years of schooling. So change and transitions are kind of a specialty of mine.
Nice. And Gary or Leeza?
Hey, Leeza.
Thanks. So I'm Leeza Steindorf, and I'm I'd say a specialist in communication, crisis, and also conflict management. And I've been working with a lot of people and also organizations in situations like this, like we have COVID. Usually it's internal crisis that I work with. I'm also a coach, mastermind coach. That's where our group came into being, as well as an executive and a life coach. And yeah, I'm a mom and a sister and a lot of other things to people. I'm glad to be here.
Great. And Gary.
Hi, I'm Gary Stone. I'm actually in Melbourne, Australia at the moment as we do this. It's morning here. And I've got a business called Sharewell Systems. In June, that business would have been going for 25 years, and we have a very niche specific area in investment systems. So people investing specifically in the stock market, but to know what you want to try and achieve in the stock market, you really, it's a sub-plan, a subplot, if you like, of your life plan, and you have to know where your investing fits into that. So we help people transform from knowing absolutely nothing about the stock market to becoming successful investors in the stock market. That's what we've been doing for nearly a quarter of a century.
Yeah, lovely. So as you can see, we have basically a bit of a medicine wheel here addressing our emotional, financial, intellectual, social kinds of needs. And so for each of you, you know, Patsy, Kendra, all of you, as you are here, you know, your heart and where you are on this journey is going to be different. And so by having our different perspectives will hopefully bring some new insights and perhaps and hopefully new questions for you as well. And so I'd like to just begin with our one big question for today, and that is what are some best strategies? Well, if you have a single best strategy, one or maybe two, but optimally one best strategy for taking care of yourself during and beyond this crisis. What would each of you, and let's start, I don't know, start with you, Dusty, with what are some of your hot tips that's your big hot tip you'd like to share with our group today?
Yeah, I would say in all of the crisis and all the change we're going through, we all want certainty, and there is no certainty and there's no guarantee. So for me, the core of it all is really knowing who you are and why you're here. Do you understand your core purpose, your core why for being? If you define that, then you reaffirm that in this crisis. If you have never defined it, then this is a time to take the time to think about who am I, why am I here, what I want to be of service to. For me, it really is the best way of taking care of oneself is to really listen to the wisdom of the heart. I believe the heart is the integrative center. And ancient Chinese tradition, the idea was that the heart mind was to inform the head mind, and the head mind was to execute what the heart offered in terms of guidance. When I was a young therapist, one of the things I learned was no one can do it for you, and you can't do it by yourself. No one can do it for you. You've got to do the work. You've got to be willing to shift your mind, to understand. You've got to be willing to go in and have the courage to listen to your heart. And you have to also have the courage to be vulnerable, to ask for help. So for me, it's that sense of connection. It's taking the time just to place your hand on your heart. Take 5 or 6 slow breaths. Feel that connection. Remember, there's something that doesn't change in all this change. That sense of who you are, that core, that heart that's been with you when you were a fetus, and will be with you until you take your last breath. And that you're not alone. So I can do the work, I can journal, I can focus on who I am. I also can reach out and ask for help.
Nice. And so any thoughts from the group for Dusty, what that beautiful reflection about the heart? I know for me, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Dusty, I know, and I've always honored that you do this work in organizations, and I'm curious, how do you speak to the suits about the courage and coming from the heart? And I say that with all love in my heart to the suits, may I ask? May I add?
Yeah, Leeza, here's the key. We're all human beings, and we all have insecurities. We all have doubts. And if I talk to a CEO just as I would talk to someone who's a panhandler on the street. We're all human beings, and we all have human needs. And when I can show people how by listening to their heart, they can have, I was working with one CEO who said, look, I've made $200 million. I have 5 businesses I'm running, but I never knew how to be joyful until I started working with you. So the highest compliment I ever received. it is that sense of being able to understand it's not enough just to make, to take, to get, and to have, or to do. So if we define ourselves by having, we're human havings, by doing, we're human doings, it's really defining ourselves as a human being. So what I get them to realize is that by coming into the essence of who they are, resonating with their teams, and opening up a psychological safety, they will actually get better results. They'll get innovation and creativity. They will have much better outcomes by being more fully human and inviting the whole person into work. So when I show them the numbers, I show them the work that's been done, and they begin to see the difference, that's really what catches them, I think.
Yeah. I love that emphasis on joy. I mean, we talk about courage and the heart, and actually the heart meaning it's about courage. But there's something about, you're talking about that executive that you were speaking with, who, naming the joy, and as you said it seemed almost like it was the wind beneath the wings. It was the energy that could propel the airplane, the movement of that which, the method or the mission of the heart. And so I think that keeping joy paired with courage is a really powerful way to keep that energy moving forward.
And Dusty, what about a practical technique for people to take away with and how they can actually listen to their heart?
Oh, journaling. I've been keeping journals since I was 17. When you're in doubt or pain, or you're confused, or you're feeling overwhelmed, just start writing. Write for 10 minutes. Just write stream of consciousness. I don't know what to say. This feels really silly. Oh gosh, I remember when my grandfather, Just write down stream of consciousness. Write for 10 minutes. It's like this knot inside us, this psychic knot, this emotional knot starts getting unraveled. I've found that to be very helpful for thousands of people, executives, for house husbands, housewives, teenagers. So I would recommend journaling, getting the knot out, or having a good friend you can talk to who can be a really good listener. That's where we can't do it by ourselves.
Yeah, great. That's done a bit of that and recommend to our members and clients do that as well. There's a new one that I haven't tried yet, and maybe we can open it up to the conversation between us, is actually voice journaling. So now we've got all the devices around us, and it's so easy just to turn it on and just do a mind dump onto your phone.
I actually, first thing in the morning before I even open my eyes, I grope to the kitchen, get my phone, and I start talking to capture whatever that is there for that. I totally get that.
So I know we need to be moving on to the next panelists in a moment, but just in sum, I love, Dusty, you were mentioning a couple of hot tips, practical tips. One is placing your hand on your heart and just listening. And a second is journaling. And as you threw in, mentioning as well, Gary and Leeza, about voice journaling, the power of that, which is really, really handy. And so those are some things that we can take and maybe just add that inviting joy wherever we can to make all of this journey easier. Nice. Any other last thoughts before we move on to the next person?
Just a wonderful line from a Sufi poem that goes, sing a song of glory, and you'll be that glory, for not are you but song, and as you sing, you are.
Great. Well, with that, who would like to sing next? Who would like to speak to your, if you have any practical, what your favorite practical tip you'd like to share today about how we can take care of ourselves during and beyond this crisis?
If you want, I can go. First of all, I love what you said, Dusty. There's some of it in my speech, but I'm going to turn it around a little bit so we don't repeat ourselves. But in times of crisis or times of change, I'd like to use what I call the 3R approach. The first R is to recognize. You got to recognize what's happening. The second R is to reset. So you got to reprogram your ways, what you think, what you want to do. And the last one, the last R, is to reinvent, and that's through actions. So basically, in this time of COVID-19, it's clear that we recognize the situation is really grave, and we recognize what we cannot do. We cannot, be close to people. We cannot do this. We cannot do that. But I like to turn it around and say, okay, let's recognize what we can do in these times of crisis. So then I go to the next R, which is the reset. And journaling is a great way to reset. I like to brainstorm out loud, brainstorm on a sheet of paper. What can I do in these times of crisis? There's some personal stuff, some business stuff. What are my passions? What are so many things that I never had time to do before because of the life before the COVID-19? And what are the things that I'd love to do right now? Because this becomes like an opportunity to do these things. So some people like to read, well, read more, watch movies, watch some more. I like to play the guitar, well, I have more time to play the guitar. I like to see people, through technology, because we can't see them live, but to reconnect with friends and loved ones that we never have time on the regular life to reconnect with. I like to cook with my wife, so we cook more and more. So all of these things you can just brainstorm and list all the things that you think that you don't do enough in your life before the COVID-19. So the last one is to reinvent. Well, once you brainstorm, you prioritize and you do your daily to-do list. And every day, as you take your morning coffee, you just scribble down what your day can look like. What are the passions you want to do? What are the people? Who are the people you want to chat, get into contact? And then you can make a list of things to do. And this way, the days seem not so long no more, And you're done with your day, and you look at the time goes by, and you really filled in the time with stuff that you don't normally have time to do with. It could be house chores. It could be anything. Every person is unique. Every person has their own passions and feelings. So recognize, reset, and reinvent yourself.
Nice, nice. That's lovely. Those the simple 3 R's. And so I'd like to open this up to the Mastermind group in terms of any thoughts or reflections about what Luke said and what it brought up for you, if anything.
I love, go ahead.
Go, Dusty.
I just gonna say, I love the 3 R's. I like the simplicity of that, Luke, and I think that's beautiful. And for me, I think it's really, when you're talking about reinventing, you're really talking about tapping into the power of imagination and reimagining your life.
Thank you. Thank you, Dusty.
That's
So
really
my question, Luke, is a little more practical, and that is, so I know you work with athletes
Yes.
with this, and I really miss going to the gym and doing my workouts, although I'm still working out, but I'm watching my pants getting tighter and tighter as we're staying at home longer and longer. And so I'm curious how you would apply or advise your 3 R's or whatever in leveraging your mind to someone who's wanting to, continue to hone their athletic abilities while we're in this situation.
Oh, very good question. Thank you for that, Leeza. Basically, I'm inspired by my 2 kids. I got 2 boys, 20 and 21, and they go at the gym all the time. Now they can't, but they do push-ups, they do sit-ups, they do curls with stuff they can use at home. They take elastic band and they stretch with it, and they work their biceps, they work their pecs, they work all kinds of things. So you can do a lot of work. Just take a walk or go jogging. This is permitted by law. We can still do that. You just got to not get closer to people, but you can go outside. So just get moving without the environment of the gym. So basically you can brainstorm what you like to do. There's many techniques of sit-ups and push-ups and curls and all of this that you can do from home. So you don't need to be a member at a gym to be in shape.
nice.
Just a couple of things, Luke, on the reinvent side of things there. Just think of, certainly here in Australia, there's been a number of stories on TV of people that the new word is pivoted their businesses. They've got coffee shops that have started making hand cleanser, and coffee shops that have gin distilleries have also started making cleanser and things like that. So they've pivoted their businesses in the moment. They've reacted. Another thing, I've got a group that I meet with 2 weekly outside of this group, another one. And the one gentleman has signed up to do 3,000 push-ups in 21 days and he's got people sponsoring him for a cause. He would never have done that otherwise, but now he's at home and he's got the time. So, and he's only asking for 1 or 2 cents a push-up, but it adds up and you get lots of people. So those are the sorts of things that the ideas are out there. People can, if you think about it, you'll find them.
Very good idea.
That wouldn't work for me, Gary. We wouldn't get very far.
Gary, I really love the idea of the pivot, and there's a concept that we use in our organization we call power pivots. The power is you never forget who you are, what your core purpose is, your core why, that's your center. And yet when you run into a barrier or block or something has changed, you're able to pivot using imagination and creativity without giving up who you are. And I think, sort of like your investment strategies, there's a certain core you don't change, even though how you go about it could change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very true.
And just a visual on that, really, when you pivot. So for example, in, what is it called in ballet where you do the pirouette?
Oh, pirouette. Yeah, that's it.
You got to have that one focus point. Otherwise you'll get so dizzy, you'll spin off. So it's that, or from the pivot point, you've got to have that one point around which you are circling. So I like that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right. So how about we then move on to the next person who would like to share your insights that you with regard to how to take care of yourself during this time and beyond this time of crisis. I think Gary and Leeza, we still have you too.
Time for a lady to go.
I knew he was going to do that. So I just want to make thank you for your comments in the chat section, and we will absolutely come to those when we go through this. So please just keep those things going. Yeah. So when I work with companies that are in crisis, the first thing that I do is a celebrations and challenge experience, and it's a really important thing because when people are in crisis, it's very easy to sink into how terrible everything is. And so to start off also with the celebrations of what we already have, what is good, what is working, what we're capable of, and also to look at the things that we're challenged with. So it's not all one side or the other, but as life is, it's all this gray zone. And so on a personal level, I encourage people to do the same, and I do it with myself. I focus definitely more on the things that I'm grateful for. It's just been my practice. But I had an experience I'd like to share with you all. I've been supporting a woman, Melissa, who has the virus. And I fell into a relationship with her through the internet. She was looking for gloves. I responded, and at some point it became clear she had no one other than her doctor. They're keeping her at home because she has heart disease. They don't want her in the hospital. And so I have become her person. And she had a crisis, a severe crisis, about 10 days ago. And I called her. She couldn't talk. Her breathing was really wheezing and coughing. And it was quite challenging to listen to. And it was unclear really whether she'd make it through the night. And so in my conversation with her, I just helped her to ground. So first of all, it was important for me to just be with what is. First of all, the challenges were there that this woman was possibly on the verge of death. Mm-hmm. The celebration was that she wasn't yet. She was still breathing and she was actually engaging with me. So I had the opportunity of just sitting with her. And as she was going through this and she couldn't talk, but I asked her to please feel her feet on the ground. Just feel her feet and to feel her breath and even to listen to the wheezing and to maybe count how many coughs she had. So a big part of my work is the genius of non-judgment, of separating the facts from our perception of them. And perception is always valid and the facts can be correct or incorrect. So there's no right or wrong to the perception. And so when I brought her to this experience of just what are you feeling? What's going on in your breath, with the ground? Interestingly enough, her whole nervous system calmed. And the gasping became less, the breathing became, I'm going to say, more shallow. It wasn't that, and the coughing became less as well. So that opportunity we all have at any point in time is to just bring ourselves back to our physical being, the breath, which never leaves us, even if it's as challenged as hers has been, the ground that always carries us, and being present to just what is without the judgment.
Yeah. Nice, nice.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So this genius of non-judgment is such a beautiful thing. One of the things I noticed with, so Melanie wrote a message here, and I think that it's a, you know, for you, Leeza, as you're talking about that genius of non-judgment, as you're asking, you're putting that question, Melanie, about the shoulds, which is interesting because it's another form of judgment. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit, not necessarily just to Melanie's question, but to that judgment. You know, how do we move away? Because we can have a judgment of ourselves, or the sense of a should, that we should not judge ourselves. So that meta level, I wonder if you could speak to that meta level of you know, how to deal with when we know that we shouldn't, or we think we shouldn't judge ourselves, what to do when we find that judgment starts to show itself.
Well, first of all, I think it's a choice of deciding whether we want to live in a paradigm where their judgment is not necessary. So we use judgments to motivate ourselves. And with judgment, I don't mean good discernment. I don't mean decisions that are prudent. I'm talking about making things right or wrong, good or bad. And the right and the good aren't the difficult judgments. The difficult ones are the bad and the wrong ones, right? Whether it's about ourselves or others. And so if we choose to live in a paradigm where that's really not the most useful way to operate, then what we can do, instead of judging ourselves for judging ourselves or judging other people, right? So that can just escalate itself, is to just ask ourselves, if I weren't to judge this, what would be useful?
Mm-hmm.
If I weren't to make this bad or wrong, what would be useful for me, for them, how to interact? So that would be a question that I would suggest posing.
Yeah, changing the question. Changing the question, yeah.
Yeah.
If I may just add something here. In what I said in my small speech was about doing a list of things to do, but it's not a must. If you're comfortable by not doing much, and just relaxing and enjoying this time for yourself and to meditate, and that's perfect as well. So, you know, you can be selfish in these critical times and think of yourself and what you want to do for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a list of things to do. It's just being, and not looking at a schedule, specific schedule is great for you. So that's just perfect as well.
Leeza, one of the things that we recommend people do is they keep a success journal to write down all of the things they've achieved. Because we tend to discard those and we focus on the things we didn't do. So one of the ways, as a step beyond the old critical hang and judge that so many of us have had, is to start talking about my successes and focus on what's right. And I love that focus. We always start with, what are the 2 things to celebrate in your life? The 2 things to celebrate in this marriage, the 2 things to celebrate in this business. Then, what are the 1 or 2 things that most need to be addressed? Most people start with what's wrong, and it's starting with right. That's a genius movement on your part there that I really applaud.
Thank you. So I have to say I tried to do timing and everything at once. I'm not real great at multitasking, so.
I was wondering how you were going to do that. Well done. Well done. So, Gary, what are, you know, you're coming from a financial perspective. This is a really interesting angle and an important angle that oftentimes gets missed when we think about self-caring. Can you speak a little bit about your thoughts about ways that folks might be able to care for themselves during and beyond this crisis?
Yes, certainly, Teresa. Let's just position where finances come into it. You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, the 5 or 7 categories or areas of life, and you know, there's health is probably the main one, which is the big crisis we're having at the moment, and health could be split into physical, mental, and spiritual. And then we have relationships, which would be family and friends. And then we have finances and work, and you could put them together or you could separate them. I think work is I think they should be separate, and we got to at all times in a balanced kind of way be positioning and thinking about all those categories in our life and divide our time up across it. And one of the things that I learned from Stephen Covey when I was in my late 20s was to write a life plan, because then you delve down into that. Life plan covers those areas, and one of those areas you got to cover is your financial plan. And with respect to what I do, and it become a very niche area and concentration of my life is the investment plan, your investing plan. Certainly there's budgeting and that sort of thing, but there's also investing. And when it comes to finances and the stock market, which is my forte, you can learn stuff from that you can apply to the rest of your life. And the one thing that I've learned in the 30 years I've been in this game is that it doesn't matter what happens. It's how you take it that counts. And that is really you can apply that to all the different parts of your life. And how you take it is a choice. And you have to choose how you take that. And some of the discussion that Melanie's brought in and others have discussed is that what do you do? And it all really comes down first and foremost about risk management. So we've got to think about risks first, from a business perspective, from a health perspective, from finance perspective, all those different. Think about it, a plan to handle that. And so what can we do in this time of crisis? We can spend some time reflecting about risk management financially and in the other parts of our life as well. And then we go on to success. I'm a golfer, so before I finish, I'll say, every time I stand on the tee and every hole that I play, and I look down and I see water and bunkers and all sorts of stuff and rough, that's the risk, right? But that is the middle of the fairway. So it's choice about what you think about, and put that picture in your mind as to where you want to go. Write it down, keep a success journal. Tiger Woods spoke about as a kid, he kept a folder, and in that folder, he had pictures of himself doing great things on the golf course. So whenever the negative thoughts came, he got out his journal, went straight there, saw the pictures, put the picture in his mind of what he wanted to do rather than what he didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. So everything's a choice, and this is a great time to reflect and put a life plan together, put an investment plan together, think about the risk and the success.
Okay. Some thoughts, folks, about what Gary was just sharing.
I love, Gary, what you're saying. The state of consciousness is the key. The state of consciousness that I bring to the situation makes all the difference in the world. And it's like, I played a little bit of golf, but I know this, that once you begin judging yourself, the game's over. So you've got to be able to let that go. That was a bad shot. No, I'm going to make a great shot, instead of judging yourself for everything that you did. And I think that consciousness really changes everything in every aspect of our life.
Absolutely. And to recognize that there's no physical connection between the events. From the bad shot you just played to the next one, you still have the potential to make a great shot. But if you put the picture in your head and you connect them in your mind, which is where the connection takes, then the probabilities are high that you're going to make another bad shot.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like to
compound the error is what we talk about here.
Well, I like to think about how, as a psychologist, and people a lot of times come in and it's like, oh, I can't believe I did this. I can't believe that I did that, or how I'm doing things. And I like to, just reflect on the fact that every moment is it's a new universe. So with every breath is an invitation for an entirely new direction, because we can really get caught up in ourselves without, beating ourselves up for mistakes or where things didn't go. But the next breath is a whole new world. And so we're only a breath away from change.
One of the, in my investment world, there's I won't go into all of them now, but we talk about the 5 fundamental truths of investing. And one of them is that every moment in the market is unique. You can replace the market with whatever your market is. It can be the golf course, it can be your environment. It's unique, and therefore it's an opportunity for it not to be the same as Leeza was saying, as something that's bad or wrong. It doesn't have to be that. It's unique, and you can choose what you make it.
I'd like to add a point on that also, Gary. First of all, I want to acknowledge there's some really cool stuff in the chat room, so I'm excited to, or chat box, to go to that when we're done here. But I wanted to approach time, because we have the illusion that if we go back to golf, that the shot I just made, we're occupied with that. It's in the past. Or we're thinking about, okay, this next shot, and then it's in the future. When you bring yourself right to that moment on the green, and I do not play golf at all, but I'm assuming that's where you are when you have the stick in your hand on the green, is that you bring yourself to that present moment, because quite literally, that's all we have.
Correct.
And now we have this one, and now we have this one. So it's a total illusion that that shot was bad. That shot does not exist.
Correct.
Nor does the one that we're moving into. The only one that, I'm going to give myself the red flag, the only one that that does exist is what I'm doing right this moment when I have that club in my hand and I'm about to take the shot.
It's the now moment.
Yeah.
There's a great movie called The Legend of Bagger Vance. And it's the story of Captain Juno, who fought in World War I. He's a great golfer, but his game is gone. And this caddy just shows up one day, Bagger Vance, and he's guiding and teaching him. And he's in the rough. It's really bad. He's really terrified. He can't hold the stick. He's shaking. And he walks up and he says, "Time to come out of the shadows, Captain Juno. Time to step into the light." And that's what happens when we let go of judgment and we begin to realize the divine right that we all carry for imagination and being able to choose something different.
Nice. Right. So any last thoughts before?
We have one last thought, and that is not a last thought, but Teresa, we'd like to hear from you, please. What you're especially in your profession as a health advocate and also as a psychologist, what is one of your gems of a tip of how people could do self-care during this time?
Yeah, well, I think that really what stands out for me during this time is both the sense of the grief and loss that a lot of people are experiencing, the grief and loss of that sense of freedom, the anxiety for not knowing what to do sometimes, and that lack of clarity. And as we're talking here, I thought it would be nice to talk a little bit about focusing on what you do have control of versus what you don't have control of. But I feel like, Luke, you did a beautiful job in addressing that. And I felt myself called. I didn't read your whole response, Melanie, but I was just struck by the beginning of that. And so I thought I think I'd like to speak to that as another gem. And that is when here we are, and we have this notion of who we are. We define ourselves so often by what we think we should do, who we should be, setting goals, keeping them, being productive, doing the working out, as you're talking, Leeza, not filling those pants larger, whatever it is. And so my hot tip, which is, I think, might be very useful for you, for everyone, is shift. Whenever we catch ourselves going, well, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, is to just shift your focus and ask a different question. And ask the question, what do I want to be doing? Not what do I should I be doing? What do I want to do? And if it's something that you think that you're supposed to be doing, you say, I really don't want to do that, then pay attention and don't do it. And ask yourself then, what else would I want to do instead? And I realized that I got the little pink flag, so I need to wind that up. But that just simply, when you catch yourself saying, I should be doing this, just change that word and say, I want to do this. And then ask yourself and go into what Dusty was talking about, go into your heart and say, is that true? Is that what I really want to do? And if it's not, then be honest and just say, okay, well, let's say, what does my heart have to show me in that guidance? So.
Teresa, I love that. I really love that. And what I think it's where's my greatest passion? And where can I liberate that passion? And that's part of the wisdom of the heart. So I love that question.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very simple intervention to, because we'll say, I should be doing this, I should be doing, you know, working out, I should be doing whatever. Say, I want to. Well, if I say, well, I don't really want to, then I'll say, well, if when you kind of go through, you know, thinking of taxes and that kind of thing. Well, do I really want to do my taxes? Well, no. But then if I don't do it, what will happen? And if I do it, and so you might end up turning into a yes, that I actually do want to do it. And then the motivation becomes easier. You get that joy, as we were talking, about, Dusty. That joy then helps uplift it. Okay, I want that. So I want to move forward with that.
So I'd like to, that's a great point. I always talk about a 49-51% rule, right? So if somebody says, would you like dark chocolate? That's like easy. That's like 99.9 yes, right? But most of life doesn't live over there. Most of life is kind of right in that middle. Do you want to get up at 6 a.m. and exercise? Well, so when you have those choices that are in the gray zone, one side of it's going to be that 51%. One side's going to be tilting over that way. So if we're talking about taxes, do you want to pay them? You do, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very clear indicator. Now, if you didn't pay them, what would be the alternative? But what I like to encourage people to do is that if you are on the 51% of yes, I'm going to be doing this, then make it 100% yes. So even if you're just slightly over that middle point, you get to choose then, if that's what you're saying you want to do, you get to choose how much of yourself you bring in, as you were talking about, Dusty, with your whole self, your whole why, your whole passion. When I do my taxes, I write smiley face. I put little thank you stickies on my checks when I send them in, because somebody's going to get that, and that's energy that I'm giving in the world, right? So if I'm going to pay them anyway, there it is. Do it with your whole self. That would be my encouragement.
Beautiful.
Making the IRS a happier place.
Any other thoughts?
I love that being all in. It's the Latin phrase, age co agas, bring your whole self. So even if, I like that, even if you're 51%, decide to be 100% all in and really let your passion flow and see if you can find a way to make a game of have fun with it. I like to argue with the IRS, and my wife keeps telling me, no, you can't make up your own rules as you go. even as creative as you are, we need to follow the rules. So sometimes you have to follow the rules, even though you have fun thinking about what you could do otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say, I've also got a degree in computer science. I'll bring a computer analogy to this one, is that whilst a computer can appear to be doing lots of things, when there's only one CPU, there's only one instruction ever being executed at the time. And at that particular time, we've got to bring our full attention to what it is that we're actually operating at that time. That we can have priorities, and the list of priorities probably is only 5, 6, 7 max that we can have in our life, and we've got to work out where whatever it is that we want to do, what our desires, what we want to do are on that list. And when we are on that particular one, whether it's number 1 or number 7, we are 100% there for that one, giving full attention to it.
Yeah, I'd like to just to all of you who are here listening too, is this there's a sense of like, okay, then it can feel like I should be 100%, and so instead of white knuckling it, I like to think about that invitation to lean in. If it feels like I am at that 51%, shifting from how to do that to how can I shift my inner essence, how can I shift my inner expectations so that I can more lean into it and bring ease wherever possible. I can allow that joy, I can allow whatever that inertia to invite me to move more into that which is difficult. And maybe, making the smiley face will make it feel like bringing in that impy quality or that impish quality will make it easier to follow through. If that can help us bring more ease, bring humor, and that just whatever it takes to lean in, allowing you to be more in your new decision, allow you to be more with your heart, and even if it is 51%, how can it move to 53% in that way of grace, and letting grace and gentleness carry us into that which we long for and want to do.
So I'd like to, on that point, I'd like to look at some of the questions, the statements that we've had in the chat room. and also going into the shoulds. So first of all, Sherry said, journal to capture your thoughts before they fly away, opens up your mind to think of more. Absolutely. And so Melanie was talking about challenge with feeling I should be filling my time and schedule productively right now, in the potent space of no scheduling and allowing time to unfold as it always does. Cannot recall another time in recent decades I've been a human being and not a human doing. I keep putting off scheduling anything at all, and proud of I am here. Should I be pushing myself to be more effective in the face of all that offers itself to change and all the change that needs doing? Am I missing a chance here? And then Margot, I read yours. We'll go through each one of these. I also like to, I'd like to make a mention on that. And Teresa, you were just saying to, go to 53 or 54% is one way of looking at it. Coming back again to what questions we pose. Now, I had said earlier, you can ask yourself what's more useful if you're not going to judge, but you can also ask, how is this perfect? What do I want? What brings me joy? I think that the question, if we choose, I find it a powerful practice in itself to pose a question rather than tell ourselves something. So rather to say, do I want to be doing this? Rather than this is a good thing to do, right? It gives us that opportunity to be in a place of choice rather than directiveness toward ourselves or toward others. I don't know if that's useful.
I like the question. What would could I do right now that would bring my greatest joy? What could I do right now that would touch my deepest heart? What could I do right now that would be loving and gentle of me? If I were my own best friend and this was a friend of mine feeling what I'm feeling now, what would I want to tell that person, myself?
Was there anything else on the shoulds that anybody wanted to say?
Just the shoulds should be part, we've discussed it, part of your passion. Should be part of what you want to do, not something that you think other people want you to do. So it's got to be, you got to be truthful and honest about that, and it comes to the heart, talking to your brain. And I think we just we got to drop what other people may think. It's really what we want to do, where we believe we can add value to others and help others. That's really what it is. And it mustn't be, I think I should do that because other people think. It's because that's where I have skills and I can help and I want to contribute, and that's the best me that I can be.
Yeah.
If you turn it into a question, it's do you want to keep shooting on yourself?
Melanie, you just had unmuted yourself.
So thank you. Awesome conversation. And I appreciate everything everybody said. And I'm still kind of scratching underneath this concept of, in this great time of change and shift, what is there for me as a human being doing things differently than the way I've gone about it before? And for me personally, it has to do around productivity, leadership, time management, scheduling, all the kind of things we're talking about that, I can hear myself in what you guys are saying, and I see me in you. And yet there's this thing, maybe this has to do with the masculine, feminine perspective, not male, female, but the dark light, or I don't even know. But I'm playing around with, is there something about being unstructured? My Pico certainly thinks so. Come here. Is there something about being unstructured that allows something to come through in a collective awareness that it might not come through any other way? Instead of me as an individual more in this flow, like you're talking about being in the present moment, man, I resonate with that. And I tend to go towards collective groups. Is there something that becomes available by us doing things differently? And again, I don't really know, but that's sort of the focus of my question. I was being a little provocative when I said should. I mean, I know I'm not supposed to shit on myself, right? And still there's this tension about being and doing all these things I see needing doing, and absolutely opening up and going, now what wants to arise? And I don't find that for me. I do that in the scheduling time. Thank you.
Can I have a go at answering that quickly? I'll give you an example. I've been a runner all my life, and I have come up with the greatest solutions to the things that I have at mind just by running, just by the act of running left, right, going along. and your thoughts just go where they go. Sure, you concentrate on what's going on around you. When I see people walking and running with earphones in their ears, and they're doing exercise, that is not allowing you to get the best out of running. If I go and play golf, I can't be thinking about business and other things. I've got to arrive in what I'm doing at that particular time. Now, whether I play golf or not is on my list of priorities. But when I'm doing any one of those on my list of priorities, whether they're number 1 or number 10, or how many of you have in there, you've got to arrive and give your best self for whatever activity you're doing at the time. If one of your passions is risk management or leadership, when you're contemplating and reflecting or doing that, you've got to be doing leadership in the best way that you possibly can. You can't be thinking about your golf game and what you're going to be doing after work. And this is where we got to have our CPU arrive at what we're doing at the time. And I think it's an absolute waste of time, except maybe for some physical stuff, to go walking or running with earphones in your head. Firstly, people get killed because they don't know there's cars coming and all that sort of stuff, but they're not getting the best of what they could
Hey,
be.
I'm in a meeting for another.
Sorry, Gary, go ahead.
So when you're doing it, do it. Just arrive and do it and be the best you can for that particular, whatever you're focusing on at the time. But if you feel you shouldn't be focusing, then cross it off the list. It's not even on your list of priorities. Do the list of priorities that you want, that are important to you in your life.
I'd like to add
Melanie,
something. Go ahead, Dusty. And
as
then
you can say, Melanie, one of the greatest spiritual teachers I ever worked with is a guy named Dr. Richard Moss. And Richard used to say, in the presence, you can be fully present. And I would say, when you are fully present, you can be in the presence. So being fully present, as Gary was talking about, you step into the presence of something greater. And through meditation, or just stepping into looking at the beauty of nature and just really letting myself open up to it, it begins to expand and time becomes almost irrelevant. And in that presence, things begin to happen. Things fall away naturally. You don't have to force it.
We're all excited here with your question, Melanie. There's a couple things that are popping in my head. And one is my summation of something that Dr. Rollo May said in his book, The Courage to Create, is the concept that in order to create anything new, we have to be willing to destroy or annihilate what has been. And I feel like this is one of the amazing opportunities with this COVID experiences. And it likens for me also Stoltenberg and their colleagues years ago had talked about a model of counselor development, but I think it's a model of human development. And it really it speaks to, I think there's this space in between that you're naming that I'm really excited about. And it's that frustration, it's that confusion. So basically we go about life and we get into kind of just like this routine of how to live, and we think we know how things are going, but then something happens that disrupts that. And so in this case, the COVID and the pandemic and all that goes with it, disrupted the way of being. And that triggers confusion, because if I can't live the way I did it before, how can I do it? Who am I? And then it's like we're lost in the wave. And some of what Leeza is reflecting on, and what everybody's been reflecting on actually, is that allowing yourself to be in that confusion and that unknowing, that uncertainty is really, it's really a right place, because it's a 3-stage model. There's stagnation, the confusion, which is where transformation happens, and then there's integration, which is where you put it all together. But that place between when we're in that confusion and we're not quite integrated is a kind of a crazy making place. And it's a time when we then start to really grasp for the sides of the swimming pool. We start white knuckling it. So that would be my, I'm just thinking how beautiful it would be to lean into that experience of fusion and trusting that that's part of actually the transformation.
So I want to break in here for a moment. For those of you who can stay on, we can stay on for a few minutes over the hour. I know that Gary needs to leave. If anybody has any questions for Gary, if you could please type those in the chat room or chat box. I'd like to come, and this is a segue to what Teresa, what you were just so eloquently putting in response to Melanie, and also to what Margot has posted now. And that is, when I do crisis transformation, people usually say, I say, the germination for transformation is in the crisis. It's not after the crisis. It's not by getting through the crisis. It's literally in the crisis. And what is crisis but exactly what you're saying? It's that disruption of what the norm is. If you imagine moving house, you have everything sorted. As soon as you're going to move, everything goes in boxes, stuff is everywhere. You have to go through chaos before you can get to a new place and resort and have organization there. And so this COVID is literally that kind of transformation is available there. So Margot is saying that she works with a faith-based community of over 200 people, have a huge range of awarenesses, and they're all over the map with what's going on. And in short, half of them want to hear more about alternate politics, news, and global spiritual things shift. And the other half is terrified of exactly all that. You get that right, Margot?
Leeza,
So,
can I just, before I go, I've got 1 minute, can I quickly just say, because I read Margot's question, my input in that would be to find the common ground. And I think you answered the question where you said a non-standard spiritual living. That's, to me, that looked like the common ground in there. And then build off that.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice.
So Gary, I realize that you need to be leaving about now.
Right now.
Okay, so thank you for being a part of this, and we'll see you.
Bye, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
On to the next one. See you, team. Bye now.
Thank you.
Next
See you
week.
next Monday.
Yeah, and I'm one. So as Gary.
So I wanted to just offer an idea in addition to what Gary just said about finding that common ground, and that is what we're talking in a situation like this. I talk about internal and external orientation. And when there's chaos going on around us, it's very easy to get lost in that external, what's going on out there, and we lose ourselves. And so if you have a community like that, or even if it's a small group, to help people come back to what's going on in here. And that's going to do a number of things. It's going to, first of all, take that panic away from all of that musing and the doom and gloom and so forth, and bringing it back to here. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I've got an article coming out on exactly that. As the first thing is to go from external domination to internal awareness. And when you come to external awareness and internal guidance. So when you have that internal guidance, you use your externals as information, but you come to that inner place. And so as Gary was saying, you could do it that way with your community. There may be this chaos going on around here, but who are we here in this community? Who are we within this group of people? What is our common ground, and who are we within ourselves as individuals, to bring it back down to the center of what we are before you spin off into what's going on out there. And as Dusty has said so many times, of having that center point of who we are and what is our purpose, and then you can move outward.
It could be many things. It could be a new beginning, a new now.
After we get the video, Margot, we can, and I'm happy to message you if I don't know if I have your email, but
We have everyone's email.
okay, yeah, we can send that to you.
Luke, you wanted to share something?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, it's okay.
Luke, I liked your clarification. Basically, whatever noun you want to put in there would actually apply.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
every breath
we
is a new
always
what.
have the choice to create our now and our future. The past is past, so no time for regrets. It's just looking at what we can do now and what we can do in the future. And when I look at your question, I see that some people are afraid, some people are in it. Our world as it was never a 100% consensus for everybody. There's been, I wrote my first book on that, The Big Bang Project, tried to create humanity's best case scenario, and where we were was not perfect. Where we're going may probably not be perfect, but we got to do what we can to make it as perfect as possible for ourselves, and to learn to navigate into this world, which will never be perfect. There's always going to be some winners, some losers. There's always going to be some takers who are not really loving, but I I think that this COVID-19 has brought many changes already, and I think there's going to be some changes that will remain. And I see a lot of beauty in those changes, and probably some people will try to take advantage of. Some people are taking advantage by selling masks way too much, higher prices.
Gouging.
The devil will remain. The bad people still are bad people in some ways.
No, I want to kind of be a little bit of fly in the ointment here. I like to think about kind of that golden Buddha in all of us. We all at our source, and what you were talking about, Leeza, at that core, and Dusty, you were talking about that core in our heart. There's the goodness, but we oftentimes, because of many different reasons in coping, we find other ways to be that maybe aren't as kind. And what you're talking about, Luke, is times of stress and the white knuckling brings out the darker side, brings out the shadow, or can bring out the shadow, and that's it's really easy to get sucked into that. And I think that the more we can focus on cultivating within ourselves and within each other that the golden Buddha that is there, that we will, that that there's an elevation that we can have, and with the acknowledgement at the same time that the fear, as you're talking about, Luke, creates a lot of times people do crazy, feel desperate. Gary's not here, but for financial reasons, maybe selling these crazy prices for things. That desperate situations can lead to desperate measures. It doesn't mean that's the optimal choice. Of course, that's finding other ways to transcend the crisis of creativity that oftentimes happens in crises.
I'd like to jump. I'm sorry, Teresa. I want to jump in here because I know people need to go, and I want to be respectful of the time. We're going to do a quick closing round, but Christine said that there's a link to what Lyndon Rigo, who lives in Greensboro, has been organizing locally, first in person, now virtually, and opportunities to local voices to emerge. So she put a link here in the chat box if you all want to copy that for yourselves, because when the meeting closes, the link will be, the chat will be gone. So you can just copy and paste that from Christine. And Melanie kindly said, I can feel the goodness like a breeze being here with you all. Thank you. Absolutely. So one way that we often close our sessions, if I may invite the individuals here to just share a word or sentence, something you're taking with you for today.
I'm going to go back to Teresa's statement. I'm not sure this actually came out, but what I heard is every breath is an invitation, which I really like.
You know what I love is that everybody's going to have a totally different interpretation of what you said, Teresa. That's so beautiful, right?
It makes me happy.
Do you want to go ahead, Teresa?
Sure. Hope. It's that sense of hope by seeing these beautiful, just seeing all of you, Franny, Mel, Christine, Patsy, Cher, everybody who's been here. It's and Margot. I just love this sense of hope as our community grows. Our community is massive. If we think about every breath is an invitation, but every one of us is a ripple, and I think that this COVID is such a huge metaphor that one person got it, and now which has impacted the entire world. And I think that every single one of us, every action we take has the same impact, but we don't realize it. And so the more we can have that be guided by love and kindness and hope, that I just feel really, my heart has just been amplified from this conversation.
Thanks, Teresa. Luke?
3 words. So precious shared wisdom. Forward. Precious shared wisdom. I think we all have such a great angle, and when you combine it all, it makes a whole that is just beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you for everybody. It was very deep.
Yeah.
And yes, and you, Leeza.
So for me, I think I'm going to say 3 words, which I didn't really expect until I just heard Luke sharing, and that was unity and diversity. That the unity is that when I listen to everybody here and all those the other groups that I've been doing, we are so all together. We are so, each one of us in that same heart space, every single person that I've encountered. And at the same time, to see each of the flavors on this screen, right? Each totally different expression of that unity is just delightful. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much.
And,
Thank you.
and yes, and so again, next week at the same time at 4 p.m. Pacific, whatever time it is in your time zone, we will be coming back again with another single question we will each be addressing, and we're going to invite all of you and anybody else you know who might like to be a part of this conversation to join us. Any last thoughts?
Appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa, again for your facilitation. Blessings, everybody. Be well. Thank you.
Be well.
See you
Take
soon.
care.
Looking forward to our next one.
Bye-bye.